What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in with a breakdown of new cosmetic items for Season of the Risen and Witch Queen, and as always with a big content drop, the store is updated with tons of neat ornaments, exotic cosmetics, and more. So in the video today, we're going to do our breakdown of items which will be sold for both silver and bright dust in the season, and hopefully that'll be useful for any of you guys who want to save your silver and spend bright dust instead, as a lot of the time these items will come up for silver first, and then are later sold for bright dust. So we're going to round up which items are affected by that, and the calendar for when those Eververse items will drop. And so I hope this will be a useful video, but firstly guys, this video is sponsored by Midday Squares, and they make awesome chocolate bars crafted functionally as a healthy afternoon craving killer. And these things are incredibly tasty, but they're a healthier alternative to a lot of snacks and are made with natural ingredients. Midday Squares sent me a mix of their different chocolate squares, which are plant-based, gluten-free, and taste absolutely awesome. Personally, I've enjoyed them more than a lot of other snack bars, especially as a fan of chocolate, but they're also high protein and made with organic ingredients. And we can get almond crunch, peanut butter, and fudge squares, which are really good at satisfying hunger, and provide a chocolate treat which is healthier than a lot of other snacks, so they're perfect for getting you through the afternoon. Plus, if you guys want to check them out, if you follow my link in the description or use code Houndish in the store, you can get 15% off your order from Midday Squares, so the details for that are down below. Now though, as we get into the video for today, thanks to the awesome work of todayindestiny.com, which has a projected Eververse inventory based on the Bungie API, we're able to look at a lot of these items much easier. So if you want to check that stuff out for yourself, definitely go and check out the various features on the site. But now let's break down the silver and bright dust items and when they'll be featured. So for week 1 of the Eververse inventory for the season, and of course that kicked off on the 22nd of February this week, featured silver items include the Glimmering Gunslinger exotic emote, but also the Digside exotic sparrow and the Maximal Malari legendary emote. However, the Glimmering Gunslinger emote will also be sold for bright dust on week 9, which is the 19th of April. Additionally, the Digside exotic sparrow will be sold for bright dust on week 3, which is the 8th of March. And then the Maximal Malari legendary emote will also be sold for bright dust on the 8th of March. Looking at the Eververse week 2 silver featured items, which will be starting on the 1st of March, we have the Wiggleworm exotic emote, as well as the Metropolis Flyer exotic sparrow, and then the Off-Road exotic ghost shell and the Hold That Pose legendary emote. However, looking forward, on week 6, which is the 29th of March, the Wiggleworm exotic emote will come up for bright dust. Additionally, the Metropolis Flyer will be sold for bright dust on week 4, which is the 15th of March, and then the Off-Road exotic ghost shell will be sold on week 5 for bright dust, which will be the 22nd of March, and the Hold That Pose emote will be sold on week 7 for bright dust, which is on the 5th of April. And then moving on to items which will be featured for silver in week 3, starting on the 8th of March, we have the Bug Catching exotic emote, as well as the Constellation Tracer exotic ship, and the Logic exotic weapon ornament for Lament, plus the Dastardly Stash legendary emote. However, the Bug Catching exotic emote will be sold for bright dust on week 7, which is the 5th of April. The Constellation Tracer exotic ship will be sold for bright dust on week 5, which is the 22nd of March. And then the Logic ornament for Lament will be sold for bright dust on week 6, the 29th of March. And finally, the Dastardly Stash legendary emote will be sold for bright dust on week 4, kicking off on the 15th of March. Now though, let's move on to the week 4 silver featured items. And starting on the 15th of March, we'll have the DIY Forgemaster exotic emote, as well as the Winning Streak exotic sparrow, plus some exotic armor ornaments, so the Sweet Embrace ornament for the Omnioculus, the Terminus Emissary for the Curious of the Fallen Star, and the Novu Filigree, which is an ornament for Necrotic Grip. But finally, also, we'll have the Rover Shell featured for silver on week 4 as well. For the bright dust drops though, the DIY Forgemaster exotic emote will be available for bright dust on week 10, which is the 26th of April. The Winning Streak exotic sparrow will be sold for bright dust on week 6, which is the 29th of March. Plus the 3 exotic armor ornaments will be sold for bright dust on week 7, which will be kicking off on the 5th of April. And finally, the Rover Shell will also be available on week 6 for bright dust, which is the 29th of March. Moving on to the week 5 featured silver items. Initially, the Prometheus OSP exotic ship will be sold, alongside the Bushwhacker exotic ghost shell and the Courtyard Celebration legendary emote, which will all be featured for silver. However, the Prometheus OSP will also be featured for bright dust on week 8, which is the 12th of April, and on the same week, the Bushwhacker shell will also be featured for bright dust. And then the Courtyard Celebration emote will finally be sold for bright dust on week 10, which is the 26th of April. Now let's get on to the week 6 silver featured items. And so on the 29th of March, For silver, we'll be able to pick up the Glaive Mistake exotic emote. The next one does require a spoiler alert, but we'll see an exotic ornament called Infernality, which as far as we know will be an ornament for an upcoming raid exotic. Then there'll be 3 more exotic ornaments up for grabs, including the Tekeli Lee ornament for the Star Eater Scales, the Trace of the Throne ornaments for Seitan's Rampart, and the Homespun Boots ornament for the Boots of the Assembler. However, for their Bright Dust distribution, the Glaive Mistake exotic emote will be sold for Bright Dust on week 8, that'll be the 12th of April. The Infernality ornament will be sold for Bright Dust on week 10, the 26th of April, and the 3 exotic armor ornaments will be sold for Bright Dust on week 9, which is the 19th of April. Next though, let's talk about week 7 featured silver items. So on the 5th of April for silver, we'll see the Turn the Tables exotic emote, as well as the Bel Air exotic Ghost Shell, and the Force Squad Stance rare emote. However, all 3 of the silver items featured on week 7 will be sold for Bright Dust on week 9, which is the 19th of April. Then for week 8, which is the 12th of April, for silver, we're going to see the 5P3AR exotic Sparrow, as well as the E99 exotic shell, or the egg shell, and then we have the Workout Dance legendary emote. However, the 5P3AR will be sold for Bright Dust on week 10, which is the 26th of April, as will the Eggshell and the Workout Dance legendary emote. And so basically only a couple of weeks later they'll be available for Bright Dust. And week 9's featured silver items are really easy. We have the Wiggle Worm exotic emote again, which will have already been sold for Bright Dust on week 6. The other 3 silver items for that week are silver only, which means they won't be sold for Bright Dust whatsoever. Then on week 10, the 26th of April, we'll see the Glimmering Gunslinger exotic emote again for silver, but that would have been sold on week 9 for Bright Dust. Otherwise, once again, the rest of the featured items for week 10 will be silver only this season. And from week 11, we are going to see Guardian Games items return to the store. So a lot of them are currently classified, but there will be the multiplayer emote Give Me a G. And on the 3rd of May, week 11, that'll be sold for silver, but it will come up on week 13 for Bright Dust, which is the 17th of May. On week 12, which is the 10th of May, we'll see the Reigning Champion exotic emote for silver, but that will be sold on week 11 for Bright Dust, which is the week before. And finally, for event items, on the final week, the 17th of May, which is week 13, we'll see the Celebrated and Elevated multiplayer emote, but that one is already going to have been sold on week 12 for Bright Dust, which is the 10th of May. And so that's the calendar breakdown of the items coming up for silver and when they'll be sold for Bright Dust instead. A couple of other things to mention, and according to this list, the silver-only items for the season include the Focused Fist, which is a Titan finisher, but also the Molten exotic weapon ornament for Dead Messenger, which is pretty cool, and then the Big Cheese legendary emote, as well as the Dropped Call legendary emote, and then a really cool ornament for Deathbringer called Dragonbone. It's kind of a Hamkara bone version of that weapon. But there'll also be Out of Dodge, an exotic Sparrow, another exotic weapon ornament, this time for Parasite, called Endless Appetite, and this one is silver only. Then there is the Bright Cycle Shell, which will be silver only, and the N33DL exotic ship. Then finally the Canned Rage legendary emote. And so that covers the items that will also not come up for Bright Dust whatsoever. And for today, guys, that's what we have to break down in the video. As we've said before, bear in mind that these inventories can change, but you can adjust their order or add and replace items, although it does tend to happen very rarely, but it's just worth bearing in mind. So otherwise, let us know any items you're really excited to pick up. If you found the video useful today, a rating down below really does help us out. Also, feel free to share this video with any friends that may find it useful, and get subscribed to the channel so I can keep you up to date with Destiny content. But otherwise, I hope you guys have an awesome day.